Do we live in a democracy in the United States, or is it a republic? My entire life, the word democracy has been kicked around. Democracy, American democracy. We have to do this, save American democracy. Uh, If you've read the Constitution, we're actually a republic. I've got this video here that we're going to go through. I'll add my commentaries for it, but it breaks it all down in a simple to understand form. So follow along. I'll give you my 2 cents. You guys can comment below. Let's get into it.
When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that our nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system.
We're going to pause real quick. Republic, democracy. Republic, democracy. What's the difference? We'll get into it, but a republic is a representative form of government. Democracy is majority rules. And where people get confused is that when we vote, it's actually to vote for your representative, not for like just what the majority wants, because the representative has to represent every one of its constituents in the House, in the Senate, and the presidency. And the original intent of the Constitution was you had your original counties or jurisdictions with the lower house, the Congress. That is where the congressmen were directly representing the people of a certain area in your district. And then the Senate was actually a representative for the state government. And many years later, the Constitution changed, where now senators are elected by popular vote, democracy. So let's keep going.
Before we discuss political systems, however, it's helpful to address the confusion that has been spread about the political spectrum. Many have been led to believe that the political spectrum places groups such as communists on the far left, fascists or dictators on the far right, and political moderates or centrists in the middle. However, a more accurate political spectrum will show government having zero power on the far right to having 100% power on the far left. At the extreme right, there is no government. The extreme left features total government under such labels as communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, princes, potentates, dictators, kings, any form of total government. Those who claim that Nazis and fascists are right-wing never define their terms. This amounts to spreading confusion. Toward the middle of the political spectrum can be found the type of government limited to its proper role of protecting the rights of the people. That's where the Constitution of the United States is. Those who advocate such a form of government are really constitutional moderates.
So we'll take a quick pause. Look, communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, these are all things that are being screamed constantly from a particular point of view these days and throughout history. But as you can see, constitutional moderates are right in the middle. The thing that puts all these things together is with communism, socialism, Nazism, and fascism is they're all totalitarian forms of government. They're all total control by one or a small group or one political party. They're not representative of the people. They're representative of that person in power. Moving on.
So let's analyze the basic forms of government. They are monarchy or dictatorship ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by a few, democracy ruled by a majority, republic ruled by law, and anarchy, which is ruled by no one. In discussing these five, we'll see that they can be narrowed down to even fewer. Looking first at monarchy or dictatorship, this form of government doesn't really exist in the practical sense. It's always a group that puts one of its members up front. A king has his council of nobles or earls, and every dictator has his bureaucrats or commissars, the men behind the scenes. This isn't ruled by one, even though one person may be the visible leader. It's ruled by a group. So let's eliminate monarchy, dictatorship, because it never truly exists.
It just doesn't work. Hitler had all of his people below him. He was in control of everything. Everyone listened to him, but he had people below him. Same with Stalin or Mao. It wasn't just them. It was a group of followers that were in lockstep with him.
Oligarchy, which is ruled by a group, is the most common form of government in all history. And it is the most common form of government today. Most of the nations of the world are ruled by a powerful few, and therefore oligarchy remains. At the other end, we find anarchy, which means without government. Some people have looked over history and found that many of its worst crimes were committed by governments. So they decided that having no government might be a good idea. But this is a mistake, because as the ancient Greeks stated, without law there can be no freedom. Our founding fathers agreed and held.
So this was actually tried right before World War II in, I think it was Italy or somewhere in that region. There, for maybe a year or two, there was it was a village or a small part of that country that had no government. It was almost like, what's that thing? It was just a commune where everyone kind of did their own thing. But obviously there's no military and no structure to that. So Mussolini had come in and just essentially just took everything over. I could be wrong about that. Was it Mussolini? I'm pretty sure it was Mussolini at the time. So you let me know down in the comments below. We can dig into all that if I'm wrong or if I'm right. But it was an anarchy and people were getting along. Anarchy can kind of work in a small commune of people that and trust or whatnot. But at some point, it gets there's too many different personalities or whatnot, where there's too much conflict, and then groups arise. It's just natural for people to do that.
Held that some amount of government is a necessary force in any civilized, orderly society. In a state of anarchy, however, everyone has to guard life, liberty, and property, and the lives of family members. Everyone must be armed, and movement is severely restricted because one's property has to be protected at all times. Civilized people have always hired someone to do the guarding, a sheriff, a police force, or some branch of government. Once law enforcement was in place, the people were freer. They could leave their property, work in the fields, and so on. In short, the proper amount of government makes everyone freer. There are some who advocate anarchy, however, not because they want no government, but because they don't like what they have. They use anarchy as a tool for revolutionary change. The condition of anarchy is very much like a vacuum where something rushes in to fill it. These calculating anarchists work to break down the existing government with rioting, killing, looting, and terrorism. Tragically, the people living in such chaos often go to those best able to put an end to it and beg them to take over and restore order. And who is best able to put an end to the chaos? The very people who started it. The anarchists who created the problem then create a government run by them, an oligarchy, where they have total power. This is exactly what happened in Russia that led to Lenin taking total power, and in Germany, where Hitler's brown shirts created the chaos that brought him to power. But anarchy isn't a stable form of government. It's a quick transition from something that exists to something desired by the power-hungry. It's a temporary condition, and because it isn't permanent, we eliminate it as well.
Yeah, anarchy doesn't really work out. You need something that's built over time that people are invested in, which we'll get into. So we're left with oligarchy, democracy, and a republic. All right?
The word democracy comes from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratein, meaning to rule. Democracy, therefore, means the rule of the people, majority rule. This, of course, sounds good, but suppose the majority decides to take away one's home, or business, or children. Obviously, there has to be a limit. The flaw in democracy is that the majority isn't restrained. If more than half the people can be persuaded to want something in a democracy, they rule. What about republic? Well, that comes from the Latin, res meaning thing, and publica meaning public. It means the public thing, the law. A true republic is one where the government is limited by law, leaving the people alone.
That kind of makes sense. We're going to keep going here. But you need... The point he's making is that you have more freedom when someone else goes and does the lawmaking and governing. In a democracy, like you constantly have to be questioned and voting and participating in things. You can't really like focus on your family, your business, your farm, like your job, whatever you're doing. You have more freedom when someone is going out representing you, a representative form of government. Now you can have your local areas or whatnot can be a direct democracy where everyone votes on things in a small area. But at some point, those numbers are so big, you can't really get anything done because you're constantly tied up with voting and disagreements and arguing and litigating things. Like you need someone to represent for you.
America's founders had a clean slate to write on. They could have set up an oligarchy. In fact, there were some who wanted George Washington to be their king. But the founding fathers knew history, and they chose to give us the rule of law in a republic, not the rule of a majority in a democracy. Why? Let's demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West. Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35-1 to hang him. But the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous, or he goes free. The rights of the gunman aren't subject to majority rule, but to the law. This is the essence of a republic.
What would you rather live in? You just heard that story about a lynch mob. Would you rather live in a democracy where the emotional, enraged people have complete control over you by majority rule, or where there's someone representing you through the law and due process? Which one do you want? Is America a republic or a democracy? I'm pretty sure if you go through the Constitution, it doesn't say democracy anywhere. I could be wrong, but if you could find it, copy and paste that and put it in the comments below and you let me know. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.